In the world of magic and illusion, where bright lights, glittering costumes, and charismatic smiles define the stage, one figure has dared to walk in the shadows. A twitching head, a long white dress, a cracked doll in hand, and deadpan silence, the Sacred Riana. To some, she's the nightmare you can't wake from. To others, she's an artist ahead of her time. But behind the unsettling facade lies a young woman whose life has been filled with passion, discipline, cultural complexity, and heartbreaking personal battles. This is the story of Sacred Riana, before the world stage, before the screams, before America's Got Talent. A story rooted deep in the traditions of Indonesia, wrapped in spiritualism, folklore, and a little girl's dream of defying what it means to perform magic. Sacred Riana was born as Marie Antoinette Riana Graharani on July 13, 1992, in the culturally vibrant city of Jakarta, Indonesia. Her name, an unmistakable nod to European elegance, was in stark contrast to the eerie image she would later come to embody. But behind this mysterious future was a girl raised in an ordinary, loving household with extraordinary influences. Her father, Krismanto Santo, was a professional magician in Indonesia, known for stage illusions that relied less on flash and more on subtlety and storytelling. Growing up around props, smoke machines, and hidden trapdoors, young Riana was exposed to the mechanics of illusion very early. But more than just learning tricks, she absorbed the art of mystique. Her mother, a quiet and devout woman, balanced Riana's life with a grounding in traditional Javanese culture and values. This cultural duality, between Western-style stagecraft and deeply spiritual Indonesian roots, would later define Riana's unique style. Unlike other children her age, Riana didn't spend her early years idolizing pop stars or playing with Barbies. She was fascinated by magic books, illusion shows, and the mystical stories passed down in Indonesian folklore. From a young age, she was particularly drawn to tales involving spirits, haunted forests, and ancient legends that blurred the line between reality and the supernatural. Friends and neighbors described young Marie as introverted, quiet, and almost unervingly observant. She was a child who didn't easily fit in, socially withdrawn, emotionally reflective, and always watching. Many believed this shy nature would make performance an unlikely path. But Marie wasn't shy out of fear. She was calculating, deeply thoughtful, and sensitive to emotional environments. Her passion for magic intensified in her teenage years, especially after watching magicians like David Copperfield, Chris Angel, and Darren Brown. But unlike their extravagant and charismatic styles, Riana felt something was missing: a spiritual connection, an emotional weight, a sense of dread that lingered even after the lights dimmed. That's when she began to explore an idea that would later shock the world. What if magic wasn't meant to dazzle, but to haunt? She trained herself in mentalism, illusion, sleight of hand, and manipulation of perception, but her approach was vastly different. While most magicians practiced with playing cards or elaborate props, Riana often stood silently in her mirror, perfecting the unnatural twitch of her head, the lifeless blink of her eyes, and the whisper-quiet shuffle of her feet. She was inventing a character that didn't exist in the magic world, a ghost child who used illusion not for fun, but for fear. In 2013, Marie adopted the stage name the Sacred Riana, a moniker designed to evoke mystery and spirituality. Sacred was a reference to her desire to make her performances feel like religious rituals, uneasy, ceremonial, and drenched in mysticism. Riana retained a part of her given name, allowing her to keep a sliver of identity in an otherwise invented persona. Her earliest performances were in small local venues, magic shows, and Indonesian talk shows. Audiences were baffled. Some left confused. Some laughed nervously. But some, particularly fans of horror, were instantly captivated. Riana didn't speak during her acts. She barely looked at the audience. Her signature twitch, bent posture, and doll, named Riani, became staples of her identity. She didn't rely on dramatic music or fanfare. Her tricks unfolded slowly, eerily, and often ended not in applause, but in dead silence followed by shivers down the spine. Her reputation grew. Indonesian TV networks, eager for something new, began booking her for late-night segments and Halloween-themed programs. Magic circles were divided. Some praised her innovation, others dismissed it as gimmicky. But there was no denying one thing: no one had ever done magic like this before. In 2017, Riana auditioned for Asia's Got Talent Season 2, broadcast across multiple countries and judged by David Foster, Ong Gun, and Jay Park. The show was her first major introduction to an international audience, and it would change her life forever. From the moment she appeared on stage, head bowed, hands gripping her doll, a curtain of hair covering her face, judges and viewers were unsettled. Her first trick involved predicting a card that terrified the judges, followed by a sudden blackout and Riana reappearing behind the host with a chilling stare. The studio erupted in screams. But it wasn't just a one-time act. Each performance after that grew darker, more elaborate, and more psychological. She used fire, possessed dolls, levitation, and even created illusions where judges believed they had been cursed or read. Viewers were split. Many thought she was terrifying, others declared her a genius. But the engagement was through the roof. Her social media exploded. Clips of her performances went viral across Asia, Europe, and the Americas. People weren't just watching, they were re-watching, analyzing, commenting. The Sacred Riana had become a global phenomenon.
And then, she won.
Rihanna became the champion of Asia's Got Talent Season 2, defeating musical acts and dance crews with nothing but illusions and silence. She had turned fear into victory and redefined what it meant to be a magician on a global stage. Behind her historic win, however, Rihanna's internal world was shifting. Fame was a double-edged sword. While her performances reached millions, Rihanna struggled with overwhelming public expectations and growing criticism. Some accused her of being too disturbing. Others misunderstood her as mentally unstable. The line between performer and persona began to blur, and Rihanna, shy, soft-spoken Marie, found it increasingly difficult to switch off the character she had created. Reports from people close to her described sleepless nights, episodes of dissociation, and emotional exhaustion. Some insiders said she would spend hours alone in dressing rooms, refusing to break character even during rehearsals. Her doll, Riani, became more than just a prop, it was her emotional anchor, a symbol of her isolation. On June 12, 2018, the world saw something on AGT that it had never seen before. Draped in her now iconic Victorian dress, Sacred Riana shuffled slowly onto the AGT stage, her head twitching violently, her doll in hand. The audience laughed nervously, unsure if they were watching a horror skit or a magician. But within moments, the laughter turned to silence. Her act centered around a haunted prediction and a terrifying illusion involving Judge Mel B. Rihanna had Mel B select a photo that appeared on a television screen, then made it seem as if the doll and Rihanna herself were being possessed. At one point, lights flickered and strange sounds filled the theater. Then came the moment that no one expected, the camera cut to black. Just as the trick was about to reach its climax, the broadcast abruptly cut away. It left viewers puzzled, some thinking it was a technical error, others wondering if the act was deemed too disturbing for primetime television. Online, chaos broke out. Forums, YouTube comments, and social media exploded. Why did AGT cut off Sacred Riana's act? Was it staged? Was something wrong? In reality, AGT producers had intentionally cut the footage to a fade, believing the illusion might be too frightening for younger viewers. This act of censorship only amplified her mystique. Despite, or perhaps because of, the bizarre editing choice, Sacred Riana's performance went viral. Within 48 hours, her audition clip on YouTube had over 10 million views. By the end of the week, it reached 25 million, becoming one of the most watched AGT clips that year. Reactions poured in. The scariest thing ever aired on AGT. She doesn't need to talk, she already owns the room. This is what nightmares are made of, and I love it. But as her popularity soared, so did the criticism. Some viewers found her act too unsettling. Parents expressed concern about children watching her performance. Critics called her a one-trick pony, arguing that the silence and jerky movements would grow old quickly. For Rihanna, it was a familiar cycle. She had seen this before in Asia, captivated audiences followed by judgment and misunderstanding. But this time, the scale was global, and the pressure immense. The AGT judges were visibly shaken after her audition. Simon Cowell, known for his biting wit and skepticism, kept his cool but admitted she made him uncomfortable. Mel B, who had participated in the act, laughed nervously but looked visibly disturbed. Howie Mandel, typically playful, said, "That was disturbing, but unforgettable." Heidi Klum, however, was the most honest. "I'm scared of you," she said half-jokingly. Despite their unease, the judges all voted her through to the next round. She was simply too unique, too gripping, too watchable to eliminate. Yet, the discomfort remained. Producers reportedly debated internally whether she was too dark for the family-friendly AGT image. Even backstage, other contestants kept a distance, not out of rudeness but genuine unease. But Rihanna, stoic, silent, and unwavering, continued forward. In the quarterfinals, Sacred Riana prepared one of her most ambitious illusions yet. It involved summoning spirits, fire, and a seemingly possessed stagehand. The illusion was slow, chilling, and culminated in a horrifying blackout where Rihanna suddenly appeared behind the judges. But something was different this time. As the act concluded, the camera once again cut away, this time to commercial. When the broadcast returned, Riana was gone from the stage. No judge commentary, no audience applause, no wrap-up.
Just gone.
When the quarter-final results came in, Riana had not received enough votes to advance. Fans were devastated. She had gone viral, left a massive impression, and was arguably the most unique act in the show's history.
How could she be eliminated?
Some blamed the editing. Some blamed the judges' lack of support. Others believed mainstream America wasn't ready for horror-based illusion. But for Sacred Riana, the elimination wasn't just a professional setback, it was a spiritual blow. She had poured herself into every performance, and the system had edited her down, censored her work, and denied her the final stage. Insiders said Riana took the elimination in silence, as always. But behind closed doors, her management noted signs of emotional fatigue. She was exhausted, disillusioned, and quietly heartbroken. Throughout her AGT journey, many fans wondered, who is the real Riana? Behind the haunting image was still Marie, an introverted young woman deeply in love with magic and illusion, but also someone grappling with identity. She had created the Sacred Riana persona as a shield, a tool for expression, but as her fame grew, so did the burden of maintaining the illusion. Off-stage, Riana rarely gave interviews. When she did, she spoke softly, modestly, always crediting her team and her father's legacy. But the toll was visible. She often remained in partial character, refusing to break the illusion even when cameras stopped rolling. Her close associates said she struggled with intense isolation after AGT. Her unique style had made her famous, but also lonely. She didn't fit into the mainstream magic world. She wasn't flashy, she wasn't comedic, she was haunted, and her performances reflected a part of herself few understood. On the surface, she was just another eliminated act. But Sacred Riana's exit was different. It sparked protests, think pieces, editorials, and fan campaigns. She wasn't just a magician, she had become a symbol. A mirror for the misunderstood.
A challenge to the comfortable.
A performer who dared to make people feel something besides applause. Yet as the world debated her worth, Sacred Riana herself remained silent, retreating into the shadows, doll in hand, preparing for what would come next. Despite her early exit, Sacred Riana's AGT run opened new doors. She was invited to appear on America's Got Talent, The Champions, a spin-off featuring fan favorites from around the globe. Once again, her performance went viral, but she was eliminated early in the competition, this time without much explanation. Still, her global popularity couldn't be denied. She went on to perform in Britain's Got Talent, The Champions, La France a un incroyable talent, and Italia's Got Talent. In each country, she received the same reaction: shock, confusion, fear, and awe. She wasn't just a performer, she had become a worldwide phenomenon. But the AGT chapter left a scar. Fans could see it. Her later performances had more sadness in them, more aggression. She stopped performing some of her earlier routines. The illusions became darker, slower, more psychological. The heartbreak of AGT wasn't just in being eliminated, it was in being misunderstood. In 2019, Sacred Riana starred in her first feature-length film, a psychological horror titled The Sacred Riana, Beginning. The movie, though fictional, was heavily inspired by her own persona. It portrayed the story of a young girl named Riana who suffered a tragic childhood trauma and began communicating with spirits through her doll Riani. As supernatural events spiraled out of control, the film blurred the lines between illusion and possession.
The eerie part?
Much of the storyline wasn't far from Sacred Riana's reality, at least emotionally. In interviews leading up to the release, Riana's team hinted that elements of the film were deeply personal. The doll Riani was not just a prop, it had become a representation of Riana's own childhood solitude.
And the eerie silence?
A reflection of how she felt growing up as an outsider in both life and magic. The film received mixed to positive reviews, especially from horror fans across Southeast Asia. Critics praised its chilling atmosphere and the unsettling realism of Riana's performance, largely because she wasn't really acting.
She was Riana, on screen and off.
The movie was a commercial success in Indonesia and neighboring countries, and was later released on international streaming platforms. It introduced a new wave of global fans to her work, this time not just through short viral clips, but a full narrative. With the success of her film and viral fame still fresh, Sacred Riana was invited to participate in several international Got Talent franchises. Each time, Riana's act followed a similar structure: haunting illusions, unspoken tension, and visual horror unlike anything else on TV.
Audiences screamed. Judges flinched. Social media lit up.
But this success came at a hidden cost. While her career soared, Sacred Riana became increasingly reclusive. Interviews were rarer. public appearances became limited. And when she did appear, she never broke character. Never smiled, never explained, never engaged. Insiders began to worry. One Indonesian production assistant, under anonymity, recalled during a French talent taping. She stayed in character for hours. She didn't speak to the crew.
She didn't eat much.
Her manager had to remind her to rest. At one point, she just sat in a dark corner with the doll in her lap, whispering something. It was hard to watch. Some began to speculate whether Sacred Riana had become trapped inside her own creation. Riana's doll, Riani, was initially a prop, an eerie addition to heighten the haunted child aesthetic. But over time, Riana began referring to the doll as a separate entity. During one rare Indonesian interview, Riana said only 3 words. "Riani protects me." It was a chilling statement that caught national attention. Fans debated whether she meant spiritually, psychologically, or metaphorically. Some psychologists speculated that Riana had developed a deep emotional reliance on the doll, a symbol of her inner child or her trauma. Others accused her of manipulating the mystery to fuel her brand. But for those who knew her, there was no doubt, Riani was real to her. Not literally, but emotionally. A former manager later revealed. If we forgot to bring the doll to set, she would freeze.
She wouldn't perform.
We had to drive across town once at midnight just to retrieve it. This growing dependence worried her family and team. Yet, Riana refused to change. To her, Riani was not a gimmick. Riani was her anchor, and perhaps, the last connection to the girl she once was. As her fame grew internationally, Sacred Riana's personal life began to fracture. She avoided most interviews, skipped press conferences, and declined social events. Behind closed doors, she suffered from what her friends described as emotional isolation. She was surrounded by people, agents, producers, fans, but still deeply alone. In 2021, an unnamed assistant said, "There were times she wouldn't speak for entire days. Not because she was performing, but because she didn't want to. It was like Riana didn't know how to be Marie anymore." Her dual existence, Marie Antoinette Riana Graharani versus Sacred Riana, began to clash. What started as a carefully constructed persona was now her reality. She stopped using her real name in any public capacity. Even her official social media was managed under Sacred Riana, with posts kept cryptic, minimal, and void of personal emotion. Some friends attempted to reconnect with Marie, the young, intelligent girl who once loved watching magic videos in her Jakarta home. But she had vanished into the twitching figure with the doll. One childhood friend told an Indonesian magazine, "Marie used to laugh. She had this beautiful laugh. But the last time we met, she just stared. It wasn't rude, it was like she didn't remember how to feel normal around people anymore." By 2022, reports emerged of Sacred Riana taking extended breaks from public performances. While no official reason was given, fans noticed her reduced activity. A few Indonesian tabloids hinted at mental health struggles, citing exhaustion and depression. But no official statement came from Riana or her team. Then, in early 2023, she canceled a series of international performances citing unforeseen health issues. The rumors escalated. Whispers of dissociative identity disorder, burnout, and psychological trauma circulated online. Fans speculated she had become so lost in the persona that returning to normal life felt impossible. A leaked document later confirmed she had been under psychological care in Jakarta for what was described as creative dissociation linked to extreme character embodiment. In plain terms, Sacred Riana had forgotten how to be herself. In mid-2023, Sacred Riana quietly announced a hiatus from public performances through a brief, eerily written Instagram post. "Every spirit must rest. Even shadows need silence. Until the whisper returns." Sacred Riana. Fans were devastated. Some believed it was just a character move. Others feared something deeper had broken within her. Her YouTube channel fell silent. Her social accounts went dark, save for a few cryptic images. And the girl once poised to become the next global horror icon, vanished from the spotlight. For over a year, she stayed out of public view. Beneath the dim lights and twitching illusions was always a girl named Marie. Gifted, introverted, and haunted not just by the character she played, but by life itself. The Sacred Riana wasn't only a performance. It was a vessel, a cry, a shield forged in grief. And in 2023, the shadows surrounding her became all too real. In August 2023, Sacred Riana's team quietly postponed all remaining shows for the year. No official reason was given. Just a vague statement. Riana will be taking time for personal healing and family matters. What fans didn't know at the time was that Riana had suffered a deep personal loss, the death of her grandfather, a figure she rarely mentioned in public but was incredibly close to. Sources close to her revealed that her grandfather was the only person who still called her Marie. He was one of the few constants in her life who remembered her not as the ghostly figure on stage, but as the little girl who used to play magic tricks at home, who read ghost stories at bedtime, and who once smiled freely. When he passed away after a sudden stroke, Riana broke down.
Not in public. Not on stage.
But privately, deeply and irreparably. Friends and colleagues say that after her grandfather's funeral, Riana became inconsolable. She stopped rehearsing. She barely spoke. The doll Riani remained by her side at all times, even as she sat silently in her Jakarta apartment for days without contact.
Her team grew concerned.
They reached out for professional help, and in October 2023, Riana voluntarily entered a private mental wellness facility in the Indonesian countryside. There, for the first time in over a decade, she removed the wig, the dress, and the makeup. She was no longer Sacred Riana.
She was Marie again.
And she didn't know who that was anymore. Marie's treatment involved intensive psychological therapy, focused on identity reintegration, emotional grounding, and grief management. Doctors classified her condition as a form of dissociative identity tension, not a disorder in the clinical sense, but a psychological split between the performer and the person. One psychologist, speaking anonymously, described it as a prolonged embodiment of an alter ego that served as armor against trauma, rejection, and fear. Over time, the armor became indistinguishable from the person inside it. Marie stayed at the center for nearly 4 months, during which time she rarely spoke. Her therapists used music, storytelling, and even magic itself as tools to reconnect her with the joy she once had. In a moment that staff described as both heartbreaking and healing, Marie finally performed a card trick for a fellow patient in December. It was the first time she had touched a deck of cards in months.
She didn't twitch. She didn't wear a costume. She smiled. And then she cried.
During this period of healing, Marie also reconnected with her Christian faith, something she had distanced herself from during her years in character. Though she never publicly discussed religion, friends say she had always believed in light and dark energies, healing through faith, and redemption through creation. A chapel in the retreat became her daily refuge. She spent long hours alone, reading, praying, sometimes just sitting in silence. It wasn't about abandoning the Sacred Riana persona. It was about understanding why she had needed it in the first place. Marie began journaling again. She began painting. Most of her drawings were simple but powerful. A little girl holding hands with a doll, standing at the edge of a forest. According to one counselor, Marie once said during therapy, "I created her to protect me. But now, I have to protect her too." In January 2024, Marie quietly left the wellness facility. She was healthier, calmer, and stronger, but not yet ready for the stage. Her manager issued a brief update to fans. "Riana is safe, healing, and grateful for your continued support. She is not gone, just resting. As all spirits must." In the months that followed, Sacred Riana's social media channels showed signs of slow activity. A black and white photo. A single word caption, "Watching." Then in April 2024, she posted a short video clip.
A candle flickers.
A doll's shadow crosses the frame.
Then, silence. No face. No voice.
Just the essence. Fans were ecstatic. Theories erupted. Was she coming back?
Had she healed?
Her team remained vague, but insiders said a comeback was being carefully planned, on her terms, in her time, and with new meaning. In early 2025, Riana began developing a new stage show, but this time, it would be different. This time, Sacred Riana wouldn't just be a horror illusionist.
She would be a storyteller.
A performer who would blend illusion, grief, personal struggle, and haunting beauty into a narrative of pain and resurrection. Early teasers from collaborators hinted that the new performance would explore loss and afterlife, loneliness in fame, the masks we wear to survive. But most importantly, what happens when the ghost you're running from is yourself? Riana began rehearsing again.
Carefully. Slowly.
In private studios with trusted confidants.
No cameras. No pressure.
Just magic and healing. For the first time in years, she was performing not to be seen, but to feel alive again. Whether Sacred Riana returns in full form or not is still uncertain. But what we know now is that the girl behind the ghost has grown. She is no longer trapped by the persona she created. She's embraced it as part of her. Not a monster, not a mask, but a mirror. One that shows strength through silence. Grace through fear. and survival through illusion. The world may remember Sacred Riana for her twitch, her doll, her haunting stare. But the truth is, she was never trying to scare you. She was trying to tell you something. That behind every horror is a story. Behind every illusion is a truth. And behind every ghost is a girl who once felt invisible.
Now, she has been seen.
If her story moved you, if you found beauty in her sadness, and if you now see her not as a ghost, but as a girl who survived, then this is your moment to keep her legacy alive. Sparkles, don't forget to like this video to support us. Pushpin, subscribe to our channel for more real, untold stories of icons, artists, and enigmas who shaped our world in ways we never expected. Hit the bell icon so you never miss the truth behind the illusion. And tell us in the comments. Thank you for watching.